May 29th, 2020, there was a controversial episode of Smackdown where Jeff Hardy was framed for a DUI. For those of you who didn't watch, this is what took place when SmackDown opened. So the opening of SmackDown was in the Performance Center parking lot. There was a car that looked like it had been bounced off a pole. It was really torn up. Elias was stretched out on the grounds. The police was on the scene. They were looking through, the car. They had found some papers and a open bottle or whatever. So the papers said that Jeff Hardy was driving the car, and because I guess the rental documents or whatever, and of course it was an open bottle. A couple of yards away is Jeff Hardy in the bushes. He's beat up, struggling to stand, and he smells like alcohol. So Jeff Hardy gets arrested. So this is the story of Jeff Hardy dealing with DUIs. Somebody is framing him. It's a hit and run story because Bruce Pritchard is obsessed with doing mysteries on SmackDown now. He's been trying to do mysteries on SmackDown for a long time, and it's kind of brilliant because people do love mysteries. I do love mysteries. You just got to give me a payoff eventually. People didn't really care for the payoff to the Who tried to kill Roman story. People didn't really like it. They didn't really like it, but I thought it was okay. It was alright, I guess. But whatever. The point is that Bruce Pritchard is trying to bring some mysteries into these wrestling shows, and in doing so, he's doing an art imitates life thing. So Jeff Hardy, who has a history of DUIs and drunk driving and all this type of stuff, who has been constantly being berated by Sheamus, who is the heel in this story. Sheamus has just been going on and on and on about Jeff Hardy. He's just kind of been calling him a junkie and a drunk and all this type of stuff. And it's a classic story of a guy trying to overcome his demons or trying to overcome his flaws and his failures, but other people won't let him. It's a very, very easy story to understand. And people got offended. There's a lot of people. Ryan Satin, got really upset, started emoting all over Twitter about how, he's been dealing with people who have addictions. And, there's other people who, I had a friend who died in a hit and run, all this, attention grabbing stuff. It's all about me. It's not about you, dog. This is a fictional story. Wrestling is TV. Okay. Wrestling. Now, yes, there are some bad ways to do these things. The Road Warrior Hawk stumbling all over the place when he was doing the oddities thing, and he was clearly drunk in his tag team matches and stuff like that. That was the wrong way to do it. Now, I don't think we ever got a pure resolution to that story, so I can't tell you whether it turned out good or bad, because I don't remember what the resolution was. But then you had the Jake Roberts storyline where he did something similar, where Jake Roberts, when he came back to the WWF in 1996, they put him in a feud with Jerry the King Lawler, where Jerry Lawler basically made all these drunk Jake Roberts jokes. And, of course, Jake Roberts is going to beat Jerry Lawler in these matches or whatever. Of course, there was a part of the show that Jake didn't appreciate when they poured real alcohol on him, and he's, of course, an alcoholic. He didn't like that too much. But for the most part, he didn't seem to have a problem with the storyline. He just, why couldn't we use apple juice? That's kind of what I got from his stories about, maybe he flip-flopped on how he feel about it. But last time I checked, he was okay with it, with the exception of the use of real alcohol. Eddie Guerrero, the storyline where Eddie Guerrero 2 times actually, because you had the storyline that led to him becoming the champion, where Brock was basically saying that he was a drug addict and all that type of stuff. And Eddie was like, yeah, that's my past or whatever, but I'm trying to move forward, or blah, 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 blah. You also had the stinging storyline of when Vicky and Eddie broke up, when he got, divorced, and he had an outside child. He had a child outside his marriage. They did the Who's Your Poppy storyline in the WWE, where they basically just replaced, he had a daughter, but they just replaced it with, Dominic, who is, Rey Mysterio's son. So they kind of tied it to another wrestler. But it was based off of Eddie Guerrero's real life situation. And to some degree, there was like a nugget there. There was not a lot, but this art imitates life thing. That's how TV works. TV is full of things where you have stories that that are based on ripped from the headlines. So I would really feel that if you're one of these wimps like Ryan Satin or somebody like that that are complaining about this, that you don't watch any movies, because almost every movie is based off of some real life stuff. You don't watch, you don't listen to any music, you don't watch any, pictures or anything, because the things that you enjoy, that you think are fun or cute or whatever, you never know if other people have that sort of thing going on in their lives. Like nobody asks that question. Nobody sits back and thinks about that. Like when I hear a rap song and I hear about, all these people getting shot, I don't really, people get shot in rap songs. Like, it doesn't affect Ryan Satin because he probably doesn't even know any people who've been killed. I know plenty of people who've been killed in the street. I personally, when I kind of grew up, I didn't think that much about it, and that's okay. All right, but after I've known several people who've been shot in the street, that shit stops becoming cool. It stops becoming funny. Like, you can do it in a humorous way, but that doesn't change the fact that I know people who've been killed. And you can say that when it comes to TV shows. What about people who've had, you watch some type of documentary type of TV shows and you see somebody who's been stabbed, so they might do these storylines where somebody's been stabbed. What about bullying? Heels are bullies by nature. That's what they do. So what about, so should we not have heels in wrestling anymore because we can't have bullies? That doesn't make any sense. Like, comic books go there as well. Like, comic books have delved into some real serious shit. And, sometimes it's too mature for the audience. And maybe that's what this is. Maybe the Jeff Hardy DUI storyline is a little too mature for the audience because it's a PG program. So maybe it's a little too mature for the audience. I think that's a good critique to have, that perhaps this storyline is too mature. But that's not what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is it's all about me. It's about how it makes me feel. And me not being me, obviously, but me being person on Twitter who wants attention, who wants to cry and bemoan and do all that shit on Twitter to make the situation about them when it's not about you. It's about Jeff, right? It's about Jeff trying to overcome his demons. It's about him. It's not about you. It's not about that person that that died in a hit and run. It's not about that person that that's a drunk. It's not about you at all. It's about Jeff. That's who it's about. But this just goes into the idea that when WWE wants to do edgier things, when they kind of want to step out of the box a little bit, they want to do things that are different, they get criticized for it. If they do bland shows where literally almost nothing happens but matches, people complain about that. If they do angles all night and it's just a bunch of people talking, they'll complain about that. If they, they claim they want the Attitude Era where there's multiple layers of storylines, but then they'll complain about, one or two of the storylines or whatever, or they'll nitpick things to death. And it's just like, is this really called for? Like, do we really have to nitpick everything? We don't have to do that. And it's really bizarre that people do this because they don't treat any other company this way. Like, well, for starters, like people say like WWE isn't doing anything, right? There's no big time angle that grabs anybody's attention. Like NXT. NXT doesn't do a lot of over the top stuff like this. The closest thing to it is a lot of the kidnappings that's been going on in the Full Sail parking lot. People getting attacked in the Full Sail parking lot. That's the closest thing to like storylines that they do on NXT. Usually NXT is like match after match after match. People complain about that. There's nothing happening. Or there's just a bunch of guys wrestling in the dark. Blah, 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 blah. People don't watch it. They rather watch the well-lit, bullshit over on AEW or whatever. And sometimes AEW is fine. Sometimes it's fine, okay? But ultimately, anything that WWE does, they complain about. Like, nobody asked anybody when they were all laughing at Sammy Guevara getting hit with a golf cart, if anybody had ever had anybody or known anybody who got ran over by a car and died. Nobody ever asked that question. Nobody ever says, before I laugh at this, did anybody know somebody who's been hit by a car and died? Because I know somebody who's been hit by a car and died. I do. I raised my hand. I thought it was silly. I didn't think about that when I was watching the segment because it wasn't about me. It was about Sammy Guevara. Okay? I didn't think about that. I didn't care. Like, I don't watch wrestling to think about what the fuck I'm going through. It's not about me. But ultimately, the storyline, when WWE tries to do something different, they always get criticized for it. And if it comes across poorly executed, then go for it. be sure to complain about it if it comes across as being some bullshit. Then go for it. But in the end, man, Jeff Hardy himself, as a 20 over shit, probably 25-year pro wrestler performer, you got this guy who's got a lot of clout in the WWE. They've always liked him. They've always liked Jeff. They're not going to go out there to embarrass Jeff. Like they've used his addictions before in storylines. They, of course, famously, the I'm Better Than You straight edge CM Punk storyline that really rocketed CM Punk to the main event was his feud with Jeff Hardy, where he's calling Jeff a junkie, and I'm better than you because I'm straight edge, and that sort of thing. That storyline made CM Punk a star. Like it took him to the level of being in that spot when he could drop the pipe bomb. He had to get to that point, and he was like right there where he was like very, very close to being a bona fide main event guy, because he was a main event guy on SmackDown. But that's a different level between being a main event guy on SmackDown and being a main event guy on Raw. He had to prove himself as a main event guy on SmackDown, and Jeff gave him that opportunity by letting him use that storyline. And apparently Jeff thought he was over his situations then. And, this was 10 years ago, almost exactly 10 years ago. So, yes, you can use these things and do these things, and they make sense, and they come across well. In this story, Sheamus is just being, he is being the voice of people who always tear you down. Like they tried to do with MVP. Like they did almost a similar storyline with MVP, where MVP, who had been arrested for armed robbery, he was in a storyline. I forget what year this was. It might have been in 2010 or 2009 or something like that. And Jack Swagger was the guy who was kind of saying, like, I don't want to wrestle like a criminal. Like, why am I going to wrestle with a criminal? I don't think I should wrestle a criminal, or something to that effect. And MVP was trying to be, upbeat about it. Like, yes, I made mistakes, but I'm a new person now. And now he does those motivational speeches where he talks like that, where he says, and I love MVP. I will always love MVP for that, because I think that that's a good thing, that he was a kid, and he got over it. He made his mistake when he was a kid. It's something that they try to use to add to his character, to take him to the next level, to turn him into an everyman. Like, part of being an everyman is not just in your look. It's also sometimes in your flaws. And in the flaws of people like MVP and Jeff Hardy, and just to a lesser extent like R-Truth and some of these other guys, Eddie Guerrero is another one, is you people seeing you as a hero for overcoming your struggles, and it's a struggle that they may have had themselves. And this brings me to Lacey Evans. 'Cause Lacey Evans said something that was really, I think, profound, and was probably the best take out of all this stuff, is when people started talking about it. And she said she lost her dad to addiction. And the way she sees it, as Jeff Hardy is a father now, he's trying to overcome his demons, but there are people who are stacking the odds against him and trying to keep him down. He can't catch a break. And that's kind of how he sees, that's kind of how she sees the storyline, is that he's trying to overcome his addictions, or he has overcome his addictions, but people don't believe him. People don't trust him. And he's trying to gain people's trust. And in order to do that, he has to, take the slings and arrows that come with being a former addict and struggling with that every day. That's everyman stuff, man. That's everyman quality. People think that Otis is an everyman, and he kind of is, because he's like fat oaf. He's kind of silly. He's kind of goofy. And, those are some kind of qualities that you could have in an everyman. But ultimately, an everyman has struggles. Everybody has failings. People's wives leave them, their girls leave them, their family won't talk to them. They have all these different, probably lose their jobs, and that's another one. Like Drake Maverick is another guy. I saw people when they did the Drake Maverick storyline of, he was still in the tournament even after he got fired. And NXT showed his video of him crying about, being in the tournament, still being in the tournament, and this still being his opportunity. There were people complaining about that. There's people saying, like, this is really in bad taste. This is really in bad taste. Just say that. Like, it's bad taste. It's bad taste. But ultimately, like, bro, it's like, why wouldn't you use that? Like when he dropped that video, there was so much sympathy, so much real emotion behind people who wanted him to make it. And now that he's in the finals of the Cruiserweight Championship tournament, there are people who are invested versus people who wouldn't have cared anyway. You know, now I'm not saying that he's going to be a big draw or anything like that. I don't know. But ultimately, taking things that happen in real life and turning them into storylines is what TV shows do. It is what makes an everyman an everyman. Just like when you say Steve Austin, everybody wants to beat up their boss. Yes, that's how every man works. Everybody wants to beat up their boss. Every addict or addicts want to be able to overcome their addictions. And yes, there are going to be people, even within their family, people that they don't know, people at their workplace, who are saying to them, you'll never make it, you'll never get over, you're still a junkie, you're still a drunk, you're still this, you're still that, and you overcome it. You know, like you overcome it, you push past it. That's the storyline that we're going with here. Now, as long as Jeff don't fuck it up by relapsing, then I don't see the problem. At that point, what's the problem? This is wrestling. Wrestling is TV. Wrestling always uses storylines. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you think that when somebody like puts $10,000, like when they put when Triple H put a bounty on Goldberg, let's say, do you think that there's somebody somewhere that was like, my dad got killed by a contract killer, I can't believe you did this? It's like, come on, man. Like, are you serious? Like, are you serious? Like, almost every situation that you could put a person in, there's somebody who that's happened to. Almost everyone. There have been people like the Roman Reigns story I brought it up earlier, where, you know, a bunch of crates and shit tried to fell on them. There have been people who have been killed by accidents like that because somebody put a crate on them, or somebody, like, things fell on top of them. You know, these things happen. These things happen to people. You know, you understand what I'm saying? Like, just because you had a bad experience, that doesn't mean that this is about you. This is also what this should, if anything, you should be looking at this storyline and saying to yourself, man, I hope this doesn't go wrong. I hope they keep this in a positive, uplifting way. Because that's how I took it. Because I also have people in my family that struggle with addiction. And just like I have people in my family that struggle with mental illness, you know, but I don't look at everybody who does mental illness as a character on TV and thinks that, oh, it's about me, I'm offended. You know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So as long as it stays inspirational and uplifting and Jeff is okay with where it's going, I don't see a problem with this. I don't have a problem with it. Jeff Hardy Jeff Hardy goes from being a superhero to being sort of everyman. They're showing he's bearing his flaws to the world, because a lot of this stuff, you can't keep it secret. It's not like, you know, like there are certain things in other people's pasts, like Jerry Lawler's, for instance, you know, where he got arrested for underage girls. Like, why would you use that in a storyline? That doesn't make any sense. That wouldn't work, you know, like that wouldn't work. But the idea that, you know, a wrestler, Shawn Michaels, is having sex with another guy's girlfriend or wife, which he kind of was, because he was banging Sunny while, you know, she was with Chris Candido, and people were using that in the storyline in '96 when they did it with the British Bulldog. Yeah, like these things happen, and maybe it's not right, and maybe it's too mature for the audience sometimes. Maybe the execution is wrong. I can see that where there's be a lot of reasons why people would complain, but complaining because you know, personally know somebody who is affected with this, if anything, that should help you become more invested in the story, because art is imitating life. And because art is imitating life, you know, it should be able to bring in more interest. But there's another thing. So Jeff Hardy, I was thinking about doing these archetypal psychological profiles of wrestlers, and I still may do them. But Jeff Hardy is what's called a lover. And that's the arc of the Jeff Hardy character, is that he's very passionate. He's very sensual, you know, as far as his ability to connect with other people. And he's always been seen as a person who has always been about creativity and artistic integrity and things like that. Even like, we can go through this. Let me go through this really quickly. Jeff Hardy he built sculptures. He also sang his own theme song because he does music. So he sang his own theme song in TNA. It was god fucking awful, by the way. It was awful. But the Willow thing. He's always been looking to do different things, and WWE has never really done anything like this before. What to this elaborate of an extent, as far as doing a mystery around a DUI. They've never done anything. They've done the drug storylines before, the alcohol storylines before. They've done mysteries before, but rarely have they ever done a mixture of both before. It's always been about living life to the fullest. Like that's part of the Jeff Hardy mantra. It's always being out there, always being live. Shunning boundaries, doing things that other people have not been able to do. The daredevil. Jumping off of different things and all that type of stuff. Taking the leap, or you could just say like, even if it's not taking the literal leap off of a balcony, it could be taking a creative leap, as far as what he's doing in TNA and stuff like that, doing the departure that he went through with his character, as far as creating Willow and a lot of different things like that. That's the archetype of the Jeff Hardy character. He's always willing to do different things and be creative, and this is something different for him. That even though they kind of did something similar 10 years ago, this is really some new ground that he's covering here, because now he's a father doing this type of stuff. He has to be on his best behavior. But the archetypes, as we probably know, they're based on Jungian psychology. And so you have the positive and the negatives. So the negative to the lover would be what we call the addict. And the addict is, a restless person. It is a person who can't stand boundaries, who immerses themselves in sensations and can't find their way out of it. It's just a lot of chaos within his system, and Jeff Hardy went through that, and other people can help. And if he's come out of it, let's say he's come out of it, which we hope he has, then that's a story worth sharing. That's a story worth everybody telling, or telling everybody rather. And why the fuck wouldn't you want to tell that story? I don't understand it. But let me know if you're interested in more archetypal stories. I can actually go through this in a little bit more detail with notes and everything. But that's up to y'all if y'all like this type of stuff. But I just wanted to talk about the DUI story and why I think people are kind of lame. And look, if you're a person who's offended because it's definitely affected you, maybe you lost a child in a hit and run or a DUI or something like that, then far be it for me to tell you how to feel. And that's ultimately, I say that a lot. I disrespect people for how they feel, but ultimately I can't tell you how to feel. You feel your own feelings. I can't do nothing about that. I can only tell you that I don't feel the same way. But ultimately, I hope you guys like this video. I hope you guys like the angle. I hope it has a pretty good turnout. And if not, then it's just another WWE shit the bed storyline. But if it turns out great and it turns out to be a dope ass storyline, why not just enjoy it, man? There's no point in nitpicking it and destroying yourself or destroying the storyline to try to upset people. There's no benefit to that. They're not writing a story to upset you. That's not really the case. They're telling a story because it fits the Jeff Hardy character. It fits the Jeff Hardy character that, people are doubting him. People don't believe in him. That fits his character. I don't understand why, that's a problem. I just don't understand why people who claim they want edgier stories are complaining. I don't see why that. I don't understand why people who think that the everyman is a good thing to have on screen think that somebody who has addiction problems, overcoming their addictions is a problem. I don't see how that is. I just don't see the problem here. And maybe I'm being thick-brained. Maybe I'm being thick in the skull. Let me know in the comment section. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.